Welcome back to Port Phillip Bay. I'm Bill McCartney and this is race 3 of the Tag Heuer Challenge, event 3 of the national circuit for 18-foot skiffs. And it really is now crunch time for the opposition. If they can't do some damage on Xerox now, then it's going to be all over. With me again is Warwick Rooklin, and Warwick, you've been out there, what would you be doing?
I'll be really serving it up to Phil Barnett and Xerox at the starts, and I think in these Grand Prix races, the starts is where it's going to be won.
And here comes the start to race 3. Conditions a little fresher than yesterday. And coming into the start, Skilled Engineering again at this end of the line. Bank of New Zealand looking well placed. On board Tip Top White Hi-Fi with Andrew Cuddy.
You're using the wrong words, Stroke. You're using the wrong words. We can't understand what you're trying to do, mate.
And indeed, it's Dave Clueworth, the sheet hand, who's wearing the head cam this time, and he's having a bit of a word to say to his skipper. So everyone has something to say in 18-foot skiff racing, and they're caught jammed down with the yellow signs on their sail. Tip Top White Hi-Fi, not at all well placed. It's these guys who have got out of the blocks well. Bank of New Zealand.
Yeah, they've been starting so well. It's really good to see Scotty getting in there and serving it up to the opposition at the starts. He's being aggressive down here, and it's really paying off for him.
All skiffs heading out to the left-hand side of the course. At the top end, Xerox out to their left. Bank of New Zealand doing very well, but Xerox looking very well placed here. They've got clear air. They're at the windward end of the line, which means that when the others up ahead of them change directions, they have to give way to Xerox. So Skilled Engineering not so badly placed here either on their left, and changing directions now is the Cruising Rangoon Restaurant. Prudential caught down underneath them all, carrying their number 2 rig this time. They all have number 2 rigs in, so they're all correctly rigged. And Prudential just up above Valabachet with the green sail doing very nicely.
And the 3 leading contenders, Prudential, Bank of New Zealand and Xerox, are all pretty even at the moment, and Ella Bachet is just a little bit down to leeward of Prudential and hanging in there very nicely. But Prudential seems to be going a little bit better with their second rig on.
Well, I must say that this is the first time I've seen Prudential do that all season. She's just sailing straight over the top of Ella Bachet. She's got better boat speed. And it looks to me as though also she's sailing just as high as Ella Bachet, so for the first time this summer, Rob Brown looks like he's got a bit of pace. There he is up ahead of the fleet, and I do believe out to his right, Xerox is dropping slightly behind him, so maybe at last, as Ella Bachet tacks, Prudential starting to show a bit of boat speed here.
Yes, and I think actually Bank of New Zealand is leading this, and Xerox is certainly starting to drop back a little bit, and all the boats you can see Prudential starting to get knocked away a little bit there, and I expect them to tack very shortly.
We're going slow because the wing's up.
On board Tip Top White Hi-Fi.
Stop the wing from coming up. Therefore, what you've got to do is push it up.
A slight disagreement on the way the boat should be sailed.
Push it up first. I'm not going to pull it on when the wing's already too high.
And the debate that is raging on board Tip Top is between the sheet hand and the skipper, and there's Ella Bachet sailing very calmly and coolly indeed, and they're doing very well in these conditions with number 2 rig on. But talking about Tip Top, the skipper and the sheet hand, the guy in the centre who's controlling the back sail, have to be synchronised to get the full potential out of these skiffs.
Now things running a little smoother on Tip Top White Hi-Fi, but they are still in behind Ella Bachet and perhaps picking up a bit of disturbed air off the sails of Ella Bachet. But here's the battle royal between these two, Prudential and Bank of New Zealand. They went way out to the left-hand side of the course, gathered all the distance they could, went right into that St Kilda shoreline and then tacked, and nothing between them. And I would say at this stage, coming in from the left-hand side of the course, these two are the race leaders.
Yeah, they certainly are, and this is the best we've seen of Prudential so far as boat speed goes. Xerox tacking. They've been out to the right-hand side of the course, so have they picked up a wind shift that the other two haven't picked up? We'll know in a moment.
Okay.
But certainly Bank of New Zealand and Prudential have got a drag race on. They're heading out towards the right-hand side of the course now. And Bank of New Zealand seems to be just getting the slight advantage there, Bill.
Bank of New Zealand looking a little bit faster to me, just ever so fractionally faster than Prudential, doing just a little bit better, sailing beautifully at the moment. Scott Ramsden with his number 2 rig, crossing ahead of Ella Bachet, and Bank of New Zealand still appear to me to be leading this race. Ella Bachet back in 4th position.
Yes, and Ella Bachet is going to go all the way to the beach. They've got to be careful that they don't go too far and actually run aground. And here's a moment of truth. Xerox is about to come up and cross with Prudential and the Bank of New Zealand. Xerox actually has right away, so if it's close, the others will have to tack away. And there we go, there's Prudential having to tack away, so Xerox has moved into 2nd place.
She crossed just behind Bank of New Zealand, so Bank of New Zealand is confirmed as the leader of this race. Xerox forces Prudential away. Great dogfight between these two once again. Rob Brown's got to really stack it on today, or Scotty Ramsden indeed, because Scott Ramsden won the race yesterday, and so it's up to Prudential and Bank of New Zealand to do some damage on Xerox, and Prudential in the back of the picture, neck and neck. In the foreground, Bank of New Zealand leads comprehensively.
Yeah, sometimes we forget a little bit about the Bank of New Zealand, but certainly they are a big chance to win this Tag Heuer regatta. But back on board, tip-top, white high five with head cam.
Not enough, nowhere near enough. I've got about 6 feet of shooting.
The debate continues.
Well, Xerox tacks, and the debate does continue on tip-top white high five. Amazing that they're doing so well, but Xerox has now changed directions.
The course today is a triangular course, starting at St Kilda Pier, up to the top mark, Spinnakers down to the wing mark, and then to the bottom mark, through the start-finishing line, and they'll do that twice.
Bank of New Zealand in the lead, crosses just ahead of Xerox, now getting very close to the top end of the course, and that's how narrow the gap is. So Bank of New Zealand lost a little bit of ground just in the last couple of minutes, crossing marginally ahead of Prudential. Nothing between these three, and this is just about the best race I've seen all season between these three. Xerox figuring, I think, maybe that they're going to make that top mark, and if they do make the top mark and get around and set their spinnaker, then they will be ahead and ahead well. If they don't make it and have to do another tack, then they'll have to do 2 tacks, in fact, and those 2 tacks will take quite a bit of time, allowing Bank of New Zealand and Prudential into the lead.
Well, Bank of New Zealand actually lost a tiny bit of ground there to Prudential, but I can't imagine Rob Brown or Scott Ramsden underestimating the ley line as much as that. But Prima in good breeze there, not as close to Xerox as the picture would have us believe, and Xerox having to tack again, so the leaders are going to be Prudential and the Bank of New Zealand, Bill.
And getting very close to the top mark now. We saw it come into picture and go out again, so they're only about 50 metres from it, and certainly it appears that at this stage Prudential will make the top mark because she's lower than Bank of New Zealand. Oh, and Xerox coming into picture on a starboard tack. She's got right of way, but Prudential swings in behind her, and in fact swings round the mark, gives it a bit of a nudge, and Prudential rounds the top mark first, so she leads this race. Prudential leading from Bank of New Zealand, only 2 or 3 seconds behind in second position. Xerox, after those 2 extra tacks we called earlier, around third.
Back on board tip-top, just for a second there.
Ready to run, Berger. Get that bag open, right?
And going around the top mark and going for the set straight away. You've got to open the bag where the spinnaker is stored and then start to pull it up the mast.
You can see the head cam on Dave Cleworth as he goes in. Here's the picture as he sees it as they go for the spinnaker set. He's pulling the rope that brings the spinnaker to the top of the mast, and what a quick set that was.
I think the director helped them a little bit there, but out front it's Bank of New Zealand and Prudential. The Bank has the windward position, in other words they can take the wind away from Prudential, and certainly a great drag race developing out to the wing mark for the first time.
And the leader Prudential also providing us with today's viewer competition. Keep your eye on the Prudential skiff. We'll be asking a question later on. And what's up for grabs is a $1,000 investment in the Prudential Total Performance Unit Trust. We'll be asking a question soon and giving you a number.
And just looking at the mast on Prudential then, it seems to be bending a lot to leeward. In other words, bending over to the left as we see it. And that's because the spinnaker is dragging it over, and the masts have been a problem for Rob Brown all year.
Well, Bank of New Zealand sailed around in front of Prudential there, but Prudential, as they go through the direction change, jibing now, and Prudential is the windward boat, so she has the opportunity to steal the wind from Bank of New Zealand sails, and that's exactly what she does. Up above, Xerox jibed a little bit earlier. Tip-top white high five, back there in 4th position, coming in for a jibe now.
They've been sailing consistently well this series, and it's really impressed me the way they've handled it.
They're all too high.
So Dave Cleworth telling his skipper that the others have got the angle wrong, calling for the jibe now.
And when we talk about getting the angle wrong and calling for the jibe, sailing is not just a matter of getting the sails up and down or getting the boats going quickly. You've got to get the tactics right. And it's a little bit like playing chess at 40 mile an hour, and if you get it wrong, you go out the back door.
Down at the bottom mark for the first time, Rob Brown has Prudential in the lead very narrowly from the Xerox skiff. Nothing in it at all. This is desperation stakes for Prudential now because Rob Brown has to win this race to stay in contention in the Tag Heuer Challenge. Coming down to the bottom mark, he's got a very narrow lead. Rounding the mark he goes now. Xerox second, Bank of New Zealand very closely third.
Yes, and there's been a bit of lead changing going on there. Bank of New Zealand has gone from first to third. Prudential has got up into the lead and Xerox has slipped into second place. And the Bank having a little bit of trouble getting that spinnaker away, a little bit of an untidy rounding, and they don't need that. They need to get that stored away, get the sails on and get on to the next part of the race.
And indeed, you're quite right, Warwick. Scotty Ramsden found an exit sign there somewhere. Tip-top wide high five, but coming around and she's got inside Ella Bache now, so when they called that angle at the jibe, they got it dead right. The others got it wrong and they've picked up a place. Now up into fourth position.
Ready for attack, we're going to attack, Berger, you right? Do it.
Tremendous sense of urgency on board Tip-top wide high five. Now that they've gained a place, they're up into fourth. The boys have their bit between their teeth and they're going extremely well. There are the current positions and there you see Tip-top wide high five up into fourth. Prudential leading narrowly from Xerox, Bank of New Zealand in third position, and this is a great race.
A good shot looking down on Prudential there.
And the question today, it's the Prudential skiff on which we're focusing for the competition for viewers at home. The question is the name of the Prudential skipper. The prize is that $1,000 investment in the Prudential Total Performance Trust, and the number to ring is 0055 60563. As Prudential continues to lead this race, 0055 605 63. There it is.
And Rob Brown has tacked to cover Xerox. Xerox tacked away a little bit earlier. Rob Brown really needs this win. If he doesn't win here now, he can forget about winning the series. I mean, it's now or never.
The exciting thing going on here for me is that for the first time this season, we're really seeing some boat speed out of the Prudential, out of all the hassles and problems and dramas they've had. Finally now they seem to be matching it with Xerox and Bank of New Zealand for boat speed, and that's a very, very exciting sign for them for the rest of this season, and perhaps now they can get into contention in this Tag Heuer Challenge. They just went off picture out on the right. They appear to be leading narrowly from Xerox, now in the middle of picture. Coming up on the left, Bank of New Zealand third, still nothing in it.
Well, actually, Bill, I think Xerox still has a slight advantage in boat speed, but certainly down here at Port Phillip Bay in this race, Rob Brown is doing the job. He is sailing very well. He seems to be calmer than he was in the previous races, and we can see their Prima dropping their spinnaker at the tail end of the field.
Tip-top wide high five, narrowly ahead of Ella Bache. They'll fight tooth and nail to hang on to that fourth position too. And there's nothing between them at all, and Andrew Cuddy and Dave Clueworth, here we are on board again, and they're doing their utmost. Things are nice and quiet. You can see Ella Bache underneath there. That's the view that Dave Clueworth's getting from head cam, and Prudential crosses narrowly ahead of Xerox. Nothing in it at all. Xerox coming underneath them. Prudential had right of way, tacks on top, trying to get some gas going back onto the sails of Xerox, I think, Warwick.
Yes, and this is the America's Cup match racing experience coming up here as they come up towards the top mark for the last time. Prudential has dumped dirty air on Xerox in an effort to keep them behind them, and that's exactly where they need to be at the finish, behind Prudential.
Top mark for the last time. Prudential rounds first. Very narrow leaders from Xerox. Yesterday they had a bit of a mess up with the spinnaker set at this stage when they led Xerox. Let's see how they go this time. Beautiful set on board Prudential, no problems at all. Xerox behind them also getting that spinnaker set beautifully. Sub 9 seconds, under 10 seconds those sets, and that's excellent going. Bank of New Zealand rounds in third position, and a great race at the front of the fleet to see who's going to take out the third heat of the Tag Heuer Challenge.
And Xerox having to flap their spinnaker, flag their spinnaker there, trying to get inside Prudential, but unable to do so. The Bank of New Zealand, a little bit of a slow set there. But look at that mast on Prudential, it's bending right over. I mean, you can't go much further or it's going to just snap right off.
And the crew doing everything, and I suspect they got a problem here. I suspect by the look of it, Rob Brown tilting the Prudential over quite a bit. Xerox up behind them also got, and Xerox now flagging the spinnaker. So that means they're struggling to make that wing mark. So this is a crucial moment for Rob Brown, and he simply has to get it right.
So here we go. Does Rob Brown keep the series alive, or does Phil Barnett wrap it up here at Port Phillip Bay? And heading down to the wing mark for the last time, Xerox in white, pushing Prudential all the way. Then they turn around there and head down to the bottom mark off St Kilda Pier into the finish. And with the Spinnakers having to be let go there to try and get up, Xerox still struggling, they're both struggling, and the masts are being pushed to the ultimate limit. The boat's right on their side, and this is a very dangerous time indeed.
Dave Slinnett, the forward hand on board Prudential, easing the piece of rope attached to the back end of that spinnaker to let it flap, because if they pull it on, they get too much pressure. It would have driven down the other side of that mark, but they've been able to make it very narrowly indeed. Very tough sailing the skiffs when they're having to flog the spinnakers like that. And these two crews doing an absolutely fabulous job.
And tactics will come into play now on this final run. Rob Brown has slipped into the boat, and I believe he'll go for a jibe. Phil Barnett looking under the boom to see what Rob Brown is doing. He's going to go a little bit further, going for the jibe now on Xerox, and this will be about one of the last times they turn around. Through the jibe, a good jibe on Xerox. The sheet hand popping the mainsail. They've got battens inside that sail at the back. They've got to pop it across to get it inverted to the right way. And here it is. This is a moment of truth.
Bank of New Zealand rounding the wing mark in third position. She's not within range of these two. This is a battle between Xerox and Prudential in the third heat of the Tag Heuer Challenge. Coming up to the wing mark, also having to flag the spinnaker on board Tip Top White High Five.
And this is very hard for the forward hands.
Coming again. We're in a squirt. Okay, now again, we're there.
Excellent action on board Tip Top White High Five. Andrew Cuddy driving. And the boys doing very nicely, right on the tail now of Ella Bachet. So Ella Bachet's got ahead of them again.
Let me call it, man. I know it's bloody your fault. Keep your mouth shut.
Oh, and a little bit more disagreement on board Tip Top White High Five. They got the coordination wrong. They stuck the wing down, but here's the leader of this race. The Prudential skiff in front. And if you want to win that $1,000 investment in a Prudential Total Performance Unit Trust, don't forget what we said, the name of the skipper of the Prudential skiff, the number to ring 0055 60563.
And I can see Tip Top White High Five preparing to jibe, in other words, turn around for the last time to head down to the finish. And there they are, going into the jibe now, on board again with head cam. And a good jibe from the boys on Tip Top. There's been a bit of confusion on board, a bit of debate, but certainly probably not the perfect thing to do, but they're just trying to work out how to make this boat quicker, and I think we're going to see more of these guys in the future.
I must say that there has been lively debate, but their performance has been fantastic, going very well indeed. Now coming round the bottom mark for the last time, the Prudential skiff showing some boat speed. She's in the lead. She's got around about 100 metres to go to the finish, and the boys on Xerox give the mark a nudge. They're feeling aggressive. They're in second position. They're still in with a chance, but they have to do something pretty sensational here to beat Prudential. Look at that, nothing between them at all. It's all in the tack now. They've got about 100 metres to go out to the right to see who wins this race, and Prudential comes out of the tack beautifully. Both of them did well, but Prudential slightly better out of the tack and coming up to the finish line now, and she is going to take out the third heat of the Tag Heuer Challenge, and maybe now she's getting back into contention.
Yes, but don't forget Bank of New Zealand rounding there in third place. They've had a win down here, and any one of the three of them, and Prudential crosses a line to take out heat 3 of the Tag Heuer Challenge. And as I said, any one of these three boats, Bank of New Zealand, Xerox or Prudential, could win the Tag Heuer Challenge.
And indeed, Prudential winning this heat, Xerox second, Bank of New Zealand third, Ella Bachet fourth, Skilled Engineering in sixth, and Cruising Rangoon doing very well there, coming in seventh position. And it's very tight now in the Tag Heuer Challenge, very tight indeed. One skiff that didn't compete in the race, just raced, was the Tasmania Naturally Different. She had a collision with Prudential before the start of the race. She was forced to withdraw with major damage. We spoke to the skipper, Andrew Dale, who's got a lot of work to do tonight to get it fixed.
I suppose, a few problems fixing it up. I hear Brandy might give you a hand.
I think that's the least he can do. But, it's like, we've put in so many hours for this week. It doesn't matter that you've got to fix something at the end of the day. It's what you put into it to get there. And that's the important part. you got to do the hours to fix it. It doesn't matter. It's the racing you miss out on that's the disappointing part.
The most significant thing about that race was that Prudential appears to be getting on the pace. The victory still leaves her behind Xerox, but when we resume tomorrow, she has the opportunity to put another victory on the board, take out this event and get back into the series.